Hey everyone, I'm Kevin and this is the In My Head podcast. Thanks so much for checking this out and for all of your support. I'm excited for this episode. It's with my wife, Allie, and it's all about dealing with mental illness within a relationship, whether you're married or dating. We took your questions from social media and topics we wanted to discuss and turned it into an episode, and I'm really stoked on how it turned out. But if you are wondering how you can support our podcast, one of the easiest ways, if you're watching this on YouTube, is a simple subscribe and like and click the notification bell so you can get notified when we do new videos. It increases the searchability and puts us on the suggested page, and it's just ways for it to become more visible for people wanting these resources or this education. The next is you could consider being a monthly donor on our Patreon page. You go to patreon.com/InMyHeadPodcast. You can donate as little as $1 a month, and 100% of your donation goes to the production of this podcast. I currently spend about 20 hours an episode on this, and I'd love to get to a point where we could pay people to help us streamline that process with editing, with filming, uploading, social media, all that fun stuff. Because then we could just get more episodes out and more content, more resources for all of you. The next is with CBD MD. I'm a big proponent of using CBD, but now you can use this link and you can go to that link. And if you buy products through that link, a percentage of those sales will go to contributing to our podcast. So you're still getting your product and knowing that a portion of your sales is being donated to our podcast, which I'm really excited about. And again, just helps people receive these resources and education. The last one, we don't receive any kickback or monetization from BetterHelp, but we just love what they're doing and they're stoked on our podcast. So you can go to betterhelp.com/InMyHead and you can get a free week of online therapy, and you can cancel at any time free of charge. And you can just try it out for a week and see if it helps you, if it's something you like, and it might lead to a new journey through therapy and discovering places that you've had trauma and things that you can work through. So I'm a big proponent of that. Those are ways that you can support our podcast. And I hope this content is helpful for you, and I appreciate the feedback that we've gotten from people. This episode today, I'm excited about. I won't go into all the details, but in the YouTube description, I've put little links that you can skip ahead. If there's topics you are really interested in, you want to skip to those, you can just click those. So check out our description if you're wanting to skip ahead to the important topics. The only disclaimer I wanted to give on this one is me and Allie have a part where we talk a lot about divorce. I'm a product of lots of divorce. I have lots of experience with family members getting divorced. My dad was married multiple times. My mom's been married a couple times, and I speak on it from that perspective. And so I hope when people listen to it, in no way, if you are someone who is divorced, has been divorced, or a close one to you is divorced, just know that we're talking about, from my wife's perspective, she talks about a point in our marriage where she felt like she couldn't. She's like, I don't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I could do it anymore, because it started having a negative effect on our marriage, and she just saw it getting worse. And so we talk about it from that perspective, how we took control of that, did communication, therapy, all these different things. So for those of you who've been divorced, I have people close to me that have been in abusive, mentally, physically, emotionally relationships, or from infidelity. I support your journey in getting out of something that was bad for you. In fact, I applaud that. And I think it's insanely hard and something I've never gone through, so I can't speak to that. But I can't imagine how hard that's got to be. So I just want you to know, hopefully that didn't touch a nerve with anyone when we talked about divorce, because in lots of scenarios, it's the right thing to do. We were talking about our situation specifically. So I just had to throw that in there so there's no misunderstanding of kind of what we were getting at that point. But I'm stoked that Allie was on here. She's given me so many great perspectives as someone who's never dealt with it, but being married to someone like me. And I hope these were helpful for you. And I'd love to hear your feedback. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Please welcome Allie to the podcast.
In My Head is a free-form discussion podcast where we talk about issues of mental and physical health and well-being. This is not meant to be a diagnosis or treatment plan, but rather a place to share real stories and insights from professionals and people who have or are battling mental illness. We hope to create a community where people feel comfortable and happy with who they are. Hopefully this is helpful for you, and please share it with others. Thanks for listening.
All right, so I just do a countdown, and then we start. I feel like we're just going to start laughing. This is serious.
You're the one that's laughing.
All right. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Whoa.
Hey.
We're going.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Alex Marie. Thanks for being on the show.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
So should we just jump into this?
Yeah.
This is obviously Allie, my wife.
Oh, well, not everyone knows that. Should I introduce myself?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do it. That's
so,
not your title. Kevin's
I'm just
wife.
his wife. That's all I am.
That's your title.
I mean, no, I don't care if that's my title. I'm your wife. We've been married 12 years. What?
Cheers.
Cheers.
You just went to cheers.
Okay. Yeah, we have 4 kids together. I guess people already know that, but
Sure.
I'm from St. George, Utah. We just moved back here a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have any family members that have ever struggled with mental health, well, prior to our marriage. So
Right.
kind of my perspective is it was difficult for me to, navigate at first because I didn't understand. So I think it's important to do this episode because I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there.
Well, and it's hard to figure out how to talk about it too, because I feel like we've kind of just figured it out as it's come along.
Yeah.
Because I don't even think I realized I had mental health issues until I was in my late 20s ish. And then with hindsight, looking back, was like, oh,
yeah,
that's what that OCD mentality was, or that's what that anxiety was, or whatever. And my mom, my dad, my sisters all had it. So it was just kind of, you're like, yeah, for sure. It all just seemed normal to me. I didn't realize that wasn't normal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what I want to do though is provide the 2 perspectives. So someone who's dealing with it in a relationship and the person who has to deal with the person in the relationship,
Yeah.
So the very first time I became fully aware of what was going on with me, we were at Applebee's with your family in 2010. And just our 2 perspectives on what was happening.
Yeah.
So should I share what was going on with me and then your reaction to it, or do you just want to share your perspective? Okay. So we were basically with Allie's family at Applebee's, one of the happiest places on earth. What could go wrong?
That's for dang sure.
and we were all just eating with your parents. I can't remember who else was there. Katie, maybe? I think Katie was there, your younger sister.
It was Amy and Tav? No? Yeah.
They weren't there.
Oh, they weren't. Okay.
I have no idea.
Scott and Katie, I'm sure, were there.
I just remember, because this will make sense later, but I remember Katie was like, drive him to the hospital. She was like, just go. And so basically we were sitting there eating, and all of a sudden I started getting what you would consider tunnel vision. I almost started feeling like I was going to faint or pass out. And I kept just ignoring it. It was weird. And then my hands started going numb. My face started tingling. And then I started getting this heavy feeling in my chest. And so I thought I was having a heart attack, of course.
Yeah.
And little did I know there would be many, many, many more of those in the future. But so from my perspective, I was just like, hey, I'm just going to go outside for a second. And I was trying to I don't like to
draw attention. So I kind of was like, I'm going to go outside. I was outside just kind of pacing the parking lot. And I think I even sat in your parents' car. That was the other scary part, was we didn't have our own car. So I normally would have just been like, I have a stomachache, I'm going to go home. So I went out and sat there, and then you came out and were like, what is happening? So maybe from your perspective, what? No, I could tell that
you could tell I wasn't doing good.
In the restaurant.
Right.
But I mean, I do have to preface it by saying that you were a hypochondriac.
Right.
Before.
Right.
Anyways, before you had anxiety. So it was always every week it was kind of like, Allie, I think I have this. And I was just kind of like, okay.
Well, because it came at such a time that you would think it wouldn't come. We were applying for med school, MCAT stuff. So I just
you had finished all that.
I finished it all.
Yeah.
And then it hit literally the day after I sent in applications for med school. So in my mind, you would think like, this is like going to be the most epic 6 months
Summer.
of my life. I have nothing to worry about.
Wasn't it about summer?
It was summer. It was June,
okay.
beginning of June. So, and I had quit my job to just full time be dedicated to MCAT study, like all that stuff. And so you would think it would just be the perfect time to just be stress free.
Yeah.
And then it hit, like that anxiety attack was like 3 weeks after that. And so I'm sitting there saying, I think I'm having a heart attack. And so you knowing me were like,
I kind of didn't take it that serious.
Yeah.
I feel bad saying that.
Well, no, looking back now, I'm like, it's hilarious because I've been in that exact same situation multiple times, and I'm able to immediately identify.
Yeah, but
it's not a heart attack, you know.
It could be still. No, it could be. But yeah, I just remember being like, okay, like I'm gonna take him. I'm sure it'll be okay. Like I never felt that worried, and I feel bad now that I felt that way. But it was kind of like I don't know what to do to help him. Right. You know, like I was kind of like, let's just calm down. Like that's just. Well,
because I'm also 26.
Yeah, and healthy, and
yeah.
And then I remember they kind of were like slow at the ER, like it was like not a big deal to them. They took you back, and then they just gave you like Valium, and I was just like, oh.
But they were also like, we need to do a CAT scan, like. Basically, like, we don't know, but they were like, we need to do a CAT scan. If you're saying you're feeling disoriented, you're feeling this. And so they have their protocols. And so me in that state was like, we need to do everything.
Yeah.
You're like, are you sure? And like, looking back, that was the right decision not to. But the tools are kind of limited to know what to do. Yeah. You know, in that situation.
But I just remember feeling like they didn't seem like they were that concerned.
Right.
Even though they're telling you to get all these tests. They didn't seem that concerned so I kind of was like, oh, well, maybe it was okay that I was acting that way.
Right.
Like,
well, it is okay. Yeah.
No,
it's like, whatever, you know, there's no reason to look back.
If it were my child, I wouldn't act that way.
Oh, what?
I wouldn't act that way now.
No, I know.
I mean, I feel like I just never experienced that. It was like kind of surreal. And I kind of felt like, oh, maybe he's just exaggerating it, you know, like the way you were feeling, like, because you were like, I think you said, like, I can't feel my arms. Yeah. And all this stuff. And I was like, huh? Like, what? How do you just not feel your arms? But, But
it was totally like textbook anxiety, like panic attack. Yeah. Because it comes on quick, hits hard, and you can't connect it to anything. So it automatically feels like a heart attack because there's not like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I was like worried, but I think my initial response was kind of like, what the heck is going on? Like, this is weird, you know?
Yeah. Well, there's lots of factors into it too, like money at the ER. There's like, and I don't know if that played into your mind at all too, but I remember in that state, just like, no, they need to find everything. They need to do like an echo, a CAT scan, like everything. Cause I'm just like, scan my entire freaking body because something is broken. Yeah. And I need to fix it because I had zero knowledge of.
But now looking back, you had already had anxiety before that, right?
Yeah, but I didn't call it that. Like I didn't know that's what it was.
No, I know. But that year before, you had like multiple appointments trying to figure out, like you got the deviated septum surgery.
That was after.
Oh, it was after.
That was all
okay,
after.
Okay, my timeline's off.
No, that was all after, all to like.
Okay, you were trying to figure out what it was
for that. Yeah. Yeah. So we went to the ER, got released with just a single Valium.
It's so sad that how many people go through this and don't even know what it is. Yeah. Like our friend that after she had babies, right? Yeah, yeah. Like. Yeah, she went to the hospital multiple times. Sorry, I don't want to give away her. It's private, but just she ended up in the ER like multiple times after she had like a traumatic delivery of her baby, and it wasn't until Kevin mentioned like do you think it could be an anxiety attack that she was like, oh, maybe that's what it is?
She literally was describing like
yeah,
things I had all experienced.
And even she, like, I saw her last week and she was like, I want to talk to him about that because, like, even still, like, I'm shocked that my body, like, she was explaining it like, you've heard about anxiety attacks and you just think it's like all mental, but it's, you have real physical reactions.
Right.
So it's kind of
and that's why I denied, even when the first doctor told me, I think you need to get on antidepressants, I still was ignoring it because I'm like, this is all physical.
Yeah.
Like the tunnel vision, feeling lightheaded, like, and that was constant. Like the tunnel vision feeling, like the lightheaded, that kind of like never went away. I would have moments of kind of clarity and then it would get worse and it would all fluctuate with, now looking back, it's really clear, like with diet, environment, you know, all that stuff. But
well, it just makes me realize that our bodies and our minds are so connected. Like it's it's not like so separated. So we kind of have to work together with our mental health and our physical health to really.
Well, yeah. And you look at, I mean, there's so many things coming into this life that you're predisposed to with like genetics and all that stuff, but you can give yourself a much better chance with taking care of yourself. And if you just look at the difference between our upbringings with diet and just all those things, you know, all of that plays into it. Like I remember always admiring your control with like a soda. If somebody had an energy drink, you would take a sip and be like, I'm good. Where I'm like, I want my own. I needed to drink the whole thing and then I needed another, you know, and I could drink multiple. And you're just, because you're young, you're not thinking about the toll that's having on your body, you know? It's not just energy drinks, it's lots of stuff. But
I mean, replace cookies and that, I don't have any willpower, so it doesn't, you know, we all have our things. But I will say that coming from a family that doesn't have any mental health issues also no divorces. My parents, my grandparents, and
no alcohol abuse, no drug abuse.
Well, I mean,
but like,
no, I mean,
you take my dad's bloodline back. It's like alcoholism, suicide, you know, drug use, divorce. Like each marriage was divorced a couple times. Yeah,
totally. I just feel like it's not saying that my family was perfect, but there was a lot less of those traumatic events. And it's almost like, I don't know.
Well, you guys went through your own trauma, but you dealt with it together.
Yeah. And I feel like one thing that our different backgrounds, like I was brought up and we like talked through our issues and you guys never did. I remember when we first got married and I asked you like, why did your parents get divorced? And you literally had no idea.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, how does he not know why his parents got divorced? Like,
I feel like a lot of things got uncovered with you.
Yeah.
Asking me, like, we always joke that I'm the one that has to know every little intricate detail, but you are the one who kind of sussed out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And you even had conversations with my parents that I never even had.
They confided in me.
They did. I'm like, they didn't confide in their damn son, but their daughter-in-law. No, I think my parents probably were like, I don't know, in their limited view at the time. I mean,
you also were young. And some parents look at their kids like, I can't talk to them about certain things. My mom didn't. She told me everything. Like from a young age. And maybe that.
Well, parents probably think too, like if they're not bringing it up, let's not talk about it. Because maybe they're not suffering with it. But I remember like through my youth doing like the drugs and whatever, my mom was always like, this is because of our divorce. And I was always so in such denial, like, no, I've always wanted to do this, you know?
Yeah.
But
I was destined to do this.
It was my destiny to do this. But like, I think it would
I remember you even as an adult, like acting like, oh no, like it didn't matter. And I'm like, no, I can see just by talking to you about your memories and your upbringing,
Yeah.
that like you really struggle with that divorce. And even just like then when we became parents,
well,
you know,
even
how
before we
you've-
got married, do you remember? I was just like, just so you know, like divorce is not
an
an
option.
option.
I was like,
like I'm not gonna.
I was already planning.
You're like, dang it! I was hoping after 10 years we'd find something better.
Uh-huh.
No, but I remember just like, I'm not gonna betray you. Don't betray me. We're not gonna get divorced. And
Yeah.
obviously, like people who get divorced, they get blindsided all the time by stuff.
Yeah,
and
no one thinks they're going to get divorced. Yeah. But I do feel like that throughout our marriage, you've been really steady in that. Like, I can tell you're really committed to not putting our children through that. And me, you know, obviously you care about me, but I think you see what the effects are on children. And so, not that divorce is the worst thing. I'm not saying that. No, but I just think that like, yeah, like when your parents got divorced and you went with your dad and your sisters went with your mom, like, I'm like, how, I don't know what the process was with that whole situation. Either. I know, but I think of it with us, like, man, if I gave Lennon to you, we divorced, that like breaks my heart. Think of him, like, he'd be so sad. Sorry, I'm gonna cry thinking about it. I don't think that maybe they just didn't realize, like, they just thought, oh, this works, like.
But I think naturally in my family, we're just going to talk about my family and divorce this whole time. So this is cool. But no, for me, I think I was just like, we kind of split, like, even between me and my sisters. I was like defending my dad. They were defending my mom. Yeah. Like, and their right to find happiness and date other people. And I remember being mad at my mom when she was dating, but wanting my dad to date. Just because I wanted him to be happy. And the same with my sisters. Like, one of my sisters had a really hard time with my dad for a long time. And it's all in this, like, being young and trying to process really adult things, you know? Yeah. And it's just hard. So I don't know if any, but I mean, I guess it goes without saying, but if anyone is listening that is divorced, we're not talking negatively about divorce. No,
I just think I really respect, I think that it's all about intentional, your intentions. Like, you need to, as a parent, like, especially when you're a parent, you need to be intentional about how your choices affect your kids. Right. Because.
Well, and I've actually had a few people over the years, as someone coming from a divorced family, and then their parents weren't divorced, but they got divorced, them even asking me, like, what. And I'm like, I am not a therapist. I'm not a specialist in divorce. All I can say is don't turn your kids against their parents, or don't, what's the right way to say that? Like, don't create an enemy out of your ex-spouse to your kids.
Don't talk about
that's what I'm
your
trying
ex
to say.
To your kids. Like,
right, in a negative way.
Obviously there's some things like, hey, your dad cheated on me. Like, but I forgive him. I don't know. But we just couldn't make it work. Like, I think that obviously everything is personal, but I feel like communication is really important. But when it's like just tearing someone apart, that's not constructive. Yeah. You know?
Well, and it's hard to understand what that does to a kid to hear one parent tearing down your other parent. There's only two people, they're born trusting. Yeah. It really wipes out your trust. So that's kind of what happened to me. I kind of just got to a point where I was like, I don't really trust either of you guys right now. I don't know
who to believe.
You know? And so, but I don't know, looking into that history and stuff, it kind of paints a picture of the way you and I dealt with trauma and things. I would kind of close off and you would be like, let's talk about it. And I remember thinking, like, not everything has to be talked about. Not everything needs to be this big deal. And it wasn't a big deal. It's like, no, but there's a difference between closing off for a long time and then exploding versus, I love telling that story when you and I started dating and you and your twin sister are arguing, and I immediately was so uncomfortable because I'm like, I've never seen this. Like, are they not going to talk for like a month now? And literally 30 seconds later, you guys were like, I love you, and you're hugging. And I'm like, what? is happening?
Was that Lake Powell?
Well, that one of them. But the first time was just at your house. Like I was just there kind of like, what is going on? But then at Lake Powell was hilarious because she was like out, Amy was out like surfing behind the boat, and you guys had been arguing, and she's like literally, I think, had tears in her eyes out surfing because you guys were arguing, and you were like, sorry, Amy. And I was like, Allie, just stop.
It's not the time.
It's not the time. Just like let it go. And then Amy looks up while surfing with tears in her eyes like, I love you too, Allie. And then you guys are like hugging on the boat. I'm like,
I love the voice you have for her. I love you too.
That's not what it sounded like, but that's like,
no, I know.
So that just over the years, I've just been like, I don't know, just this raw, open communication is.
And we haven't always had that, but I swear every time we have problems, we even had a little problem this morning, and I was like, I'm not feeling this podcast. And then we talk, like, we always come to the conclusion that like communication, like in any relationship, is key. You know, I feel like that can solve so many problems. But when you were first starting to deal with your mental health issues, I remember I didn't know what was wrong, you know, and I felt like just kind of like frozen a little bit. Like I don't know what to, he won't even tell me what's going on. I can feel it. I can feel like this weight.
Right.
But I didn't know how to help you, you know?
Right.
So it's just kind of interesting to look back at the beginning because, and it kind of like over time, it's like you like opened up and now I'm even sometimes still I'll be like, I'm really sensitive to it. So I can be like, you know
the signs a lot now.
Yeah.
Too.
I'll be like, okay, like what's going on? You know, tell me, talk to me. Whereas before it's like, I mean, I think of when you told me that you had suicidal thoughts, I was like, well, why didn't you tell me? You know, like I kind of felt a little betrayed that you hadn't told me. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Well, so it's interesting too, like in the beginning, and I've still felt this even way less lately, and now that I just understand the process a lot more. But I remember in the beginning, just in your eyes, you took it onto yourself. Like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
I did feel like that. I remember feeling like, well,
it's me causing this.
Why is he unhappy with me?
Yeah.
And
in my mind,
what did I do wrong?
Yeah. And at the same time, me literally thinking, like, I'm so mad at myself that Allie got stuck with someone like me. Like, she deserves someone better. She deserves a husband who's every day wakes up just, let's go, family, let's charge, let's do this, let's, you know, and just like always on, you know?
Yeah.
And which is so silly too, because that's so rare. Like the most positive, energized people I know still are just like, I need a break from my family.
Everyone has their down days.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Like,
and so like, it's funny seeing the two of us, you thinking that and simultaneously me thinking like, why can't I just be better for my family?
Yeah.
Like,
but I remember a time when you thought that you couldn't tell me because you thought I'd be mad at you.
For sure. Yeah.
You know?
Well, because I knew you would take it on. I knew you would take it on yourself. So that was my fear. Was like, how do I explain this to Allie that she's like an amazing wife, but I still am feeling like depressed and like hopeless? And how can I explain when we're see, I think the hardest thing for me was I would hear, even growing up and even when I finally accepted I had anxiety and depression, like still hearing people not knowing I had it say like, people just need to buck up. Like everybody has anxiety. Everyone's depressed. Like just deal with it, you know, like blah, blah, blah. And I remember hearing that and just thinking like, I can never tell people
It was probably my family, huh? I remember a couple times because I knew that you had it and there'd be like conversations that would get brought up. And I remember like, I don't know specifically who, but it was kind of like people just need to like realize that life is good, you know? And that's totally my family's mentality, because that's my mentality. Like,
because your family has been through insanely hard things.
Yeah.
So for them, it's like, we're powering through this. We're trying our hardest. We're talking and all that. But there was that disconnect of people who are diagnosed clinically with depression. The difference is, like, you can do something fun and the blues and a hard day can wear off if you go for a run, or you go, and then someone with depression can be at Disneyland and literally feel terrible.
Yeah.
You know, maybe Disneyland was a bad example because everyone,
no one,
you know,
I don't know.
But, like,
I
you can
kind
be
of
doing,
hate Disneyland now, so I'm the
or like,
it's just
you
too
can
busy
you can be in the calmest scenario and be feeling anxious, or the happiest scenario and feel depressed.
Yeah.
You know, just the difference between that. So I remember feeling that, just like, I can't talk about this, and knowing Allie, I don't want her to feel that she caused me to feel this way, because you'll take it on. So it was a mixture of that, being ashamed of it. Like, what the freak? Like, why am I don't have any reason to be depressed. I don't have any reason to be anxious, you know?
I did get hung up on that a little myself. Like, oh, we have so many good things going on. Why is he like this? Like, it's such a bummer, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not going to lie. I don't.
You're like, I'm not going to lie. I had the bags packed.
No,
a few times.
no, I mentally, sometimes I was just like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
You know?
For
and
sure.
I feel bad admitting that. But I was like, if my whole life is going to be like where I don't feel connected to my spouse, because that's what I struggle with the most, is not feeling connected to you, because you would close off and I didn't know how to help you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like this is a therapy session.
We're going to make a montage of
me crying.
Yeah. It's like, man, this is intense. But I mean, not skip ahead, we'll go back there, but just for anyone feeling like they're in that situation now, I don't know if you feel this way, but I honestly feel in our marriage now, I feel more connected to you now than I ever have before.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like more open with you, and we've had more constructive, positive conversations lately than we ever have.
Oh, totally. I mean, I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel for anyone in this situation, but
it takes work.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I've done any work, but
that's not true. You've done a ton of work. What do you mean?
I just feel like on a day-to-day basis, I don't, but I just try to be there for you, you know, when I can tell you're struggling. Like, I kind of, hey, go take a nap, or let's talk about it. Let's figure out a solution, because I know that you tend to, it's like, I think any man worries a lot about providing for their family. And I think a lot of your issues do kind of stem from that. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
And the silly notion of like defining male masculinity. Like, you've always got to be the bravest, the forefront of the family. You've got to be pulling your family behind you, which I think is total crap, you know?
Yeah.
I think obviously, if you're providing for people, you got to be getting up, doing the work, making money. But we even have this in our notes to get to this, but just completely almost redefining like our roles, like you being the mom you are to our kids, in me was every bit as important, if not more, than the work I was doing to try and get a paycheck. And I think often those are reversed. Yeah. I think that all the focus in some marriages are on the man. He's doing all the work. He's bringing the money in, blah, blah, blah. So we just have to, whatever he's down with, kind of cater to him. And I think maybe it works for some people. I don't want to rip on anybody's situation, but for me, I'm just like, and I think that's because I had a glimpse of what it's like to be a stay-at-home dad. Yeah. And it completely opened my eyes to the freaking work it takes to be a mom. And I was just doing it for like a work day. Yeah. And then you could come home and I could be like, oh my gosh, like, you know, and I did that with one kid and then a little bit with two, where we both were working and trying to manage it and stuff. But it's like, I almost think every husband needs a taste of that.
Yeah.
Whether the wife goes on a week-long trip, a girls' trip, and all the kids stay home, and the husband really has to do all the aspects that a mom does on a daily basis,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I think that it's all about balance, you know? Like, I need to give you credit where credit's due and vice versa, you know?
Yeah.
But kind of does remind me of that mental load thing I sent you the other day.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of caused a little tiff. But it is true. Like, as moms, you're constantly thinking like, okay, like what's the next thing? No, maybe you're not even thinking it. It just, you see a mess, you got to clean it up. Like,
yeah. So it describes like, I got to go do laundry. On the way to your trip to doing a laundry, you find like a dog peed on the rug. So you got to clean that first. Then you go throw some paper towels in the garbage. You see the garbage is overflowing. So you take that out. You go outside and you see that some raccoons tipped over the trash. So you do that. And then you see that the whatever, you know? So just in your path to get to doing laundry, you saw 15 things that need to be fixed. And then there's that classic thing of the husband coming home like, what'd you do all day? So, and you're like, I don't know. You know?
I don't know.
I don't know what I did. I know I was busy all day, but yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that is, I guess this is kind of, we were going to talk about this sometime in the conversation, but the stay-at-home mom,
low self-esteem,
just not feeling
Can
your value.
Can I preface that with one thing is, we put out questions the other day on social media, and a few of them came back, and a lot of the similar ones were, how do you balance the person with mental illness? How do you balance their needs? And then the significant other who doesn't have those, but also has mental health, because everyone has mental health and everyone needs to care for that. And so the one thing I wanted to preface is I think we'll go back and talk all about communication, because that's huge, but it's really easy as someone who has mental illness, as soon as their spouse is on board and understands it and then wants to help, it's so easy to take advantage of that. And just like, I need the help. I'm struggling. And it's easy to neglect the significant other, their needs and their mental health. And you can easily be drained from it. You can almost develop mental illness from being drained from it. Yeah. So someone specifically asked us about stay-at-home moms, low self-esteem, and I was like, you'd be great to talk about this because you've had definitely those moments. Yeah. So, I mean, I think every new mom probably goes through this, but I went from being like running a super, super successful business. Then we moved to go to medical school. I was already pretty pregnant, almost due, so I didn't work. That was a hard transition. Then when I had my first daughter, Cav was super busy in medical school, gone like 12 hours plus a day. And he would get home and be like, oh, what'd you do today? And I honestly was like, I didn't do anything. And that was my first initial response. And then when you start to, it's hard to quantify what a mom does, especially with a new baby, because you're just like constantly nursing and changing diapers, and you might leave the house, but it's kind of a fiasco because you have a blowout or whatever. Like, it doesn't. You have blowout, or
I do sometimes. Sharp my pants. Yeah. But
and then there's a baby too.
And then the baby's there. I don't know. But yeah, it's like, it's hard to compare like what you're doing to what they're doing. 'Cause I guess in our world, it's like, oh yeah, your husband's doing amazing things and you're just a stay-at-home mom. Like,
it's all about supporting the husband.
Yeah. And sometimes that gets hard. I mean, it's like there's always a good woman behind a man, and I
hate those old sayings.
I know, but it's true. And I mean, I've gone through times where when being a mom, I've gone through times where I've worked and not, and back and forth. And I still work. I think that maybe part of the hard thing for me is just having been like in a a career that I loved, like it's hard to go from that to not having it.
Not at all.
Even though, not saying that I'm not fulfilled as a mother, because I am, and I know that like my kids need me, but I've just kind of now found the balance where I still have work, and it's kind of like my way of just having something that makes me feel
an outlet.
Yeah, like an individual, like my own self-identity is just to like,
totally.
Yeah, like I'm not, because I don't think that it's just a mom. Because I honestly, like if I've ever been just a mom, like I actually love it. Like I'm like, oh, my house is clean and like I'm just focusing on my kids. I'm getting down there playing with them. Like you actually have time for them. And so I think now that I'm doing homeschool, I feel it's like I have the best of both worlds, you know, but it's taken time to find that balance. But I do think that for stay-at-home moms that are struggling with low self-esteem or depression, like I think that you need to find a support system, whether it's just other moms that you meet at the park with like a couple times a week, or
like you had a friend, was it with Lennon, our second, that you guys would literally meet up and just nurse together?
Yeah.
And just talk.
Yeah. I remember.
And it was a new friend too. It wasn't like a long time.
Yeah. I remember we both had babies at the same time, and I was like, I'm just literally nursing all day, so we should just get together. And we did. And it really helped me to feel like I was having adult conversations. And
then you guys started doing yoga together. So then me and the husband would call each other when we'd be
taking
like,
care of the babies.
We'd be taking care of the babies, like, bro, you all right? Like
this baby needs a nurse.
Dude, my kid will not stop crying.
I know. I remember one time we stayed after the yoga class for like over an hour just talking in the parking lot. I mean, you just need other connections. Yeah. So we were just like, just all into that conversation and like feeling like we're free a little bit, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think that is so important. And one thing that I've always like realized when I've struggled, I'm like when in doubt, get out. Like doesn't have to be anything big. Just get out of your house. Like seriously, getting out in fresh air, like going to the park or going to the McDonald's drive-thru to get a Coke.
Yeah.
Like it makes me feel better. Like
for sure.
I think that you need, and I love like just having loungy days where I don't get ready and stuff, but like it's so true. I feel like dress for success. I mean, it's not just for like jobs. It's like when you get ready for the day, you automatically feel like a lot better.
Right.
You know, like you aren't like, don't catch a glimpse in the mirror and you're like, ugh, like, who's that?
You're like, damn.
No, it's not that you have to feel like I'm sexy, but like.
It's a mental thing though, because they say that for men who struggle with self-esteem, they're like, get up and make your bed every day.
Yeah.
The first thing you do, you accomplish something. And people might laugh at that, but it literally changes some chemistry in your mind to think like, I've already started getting stuff done, you know?
I think as human beings, we just want to feel purposeful.
Right.
So, like, if we get our bed made, we've done something, you know?
Yeah.
And as a stay-at-home mom, it is hard to feel that purpose, you know? You're like, it is, everything you're doing is so important, but it's like, you look at it like, oh, I just changed diapers all day and fed kids, but my house is still a mess. But it's like, you're doing a good job, and just remind yourself of that.
Well, and I think people too need to not like reinvent the wheel, but look at your family situation and see like what is most helpful for my spouse, and they're thinking the same thing. Mm-hmm. You're obviously taking care of yourself. Yeah. But there's been times in our marriage, I remember in San Diego when I worked at the office in Encinitas, and then I would come home. And sometimes I would come home and immediately go to our bedroom and go to my computer and just be like, I just got to send a few emails and send this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it started becoming a habit. And I was grateful that you spoke up and was just like, hey, like that time right when you get home from your work would be a great time kind of just to like
eat the food that's sitting on the table.
Yeah.
That's, I remember I was like, I would have like a hot plate of food for you and you just be like, zoop, like gone. And I mean, there's more to it than just that.
For sure. But now it's kind of morphed into, and I'm sure I still need reminders, but it's morphed into like, I come home and it's like, come here, baby, come here, kids. Like, what are you guys doing? What have you been doing? So like, whatever you're doing, if you're cooking food or you're trying to straighten up or you're doing work stuff, like you can have that time immediately when I get home.
Yeah.
And you should do that. As a husband, you should, and as a father especially, you should do that. Like
totally. It's kind of like, I think I've heard that like the first 3 minutes after you pick your kids up from school are like the most important.
Totally.
Like to take advantage of communicating with them because they're like you can connect with them. They I don't know.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Cut that out.
Cut.
No, but they like, it's the same thing. Like you need to be available for connection with your family, your loved ones.
Right.
Like, I think that, and not to go back, but the stay-at-home mom thing, I think that another thing is like, don't scroll on Instagram and Facebook. Like that doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah.
How, like, I don't know. I think that there are good things about it, but
set times for it. If it's something
set
you can't
times,
set aside.
like,
if it's for business or something, like set
but
times.
if you're already feeling down, like that's the worst
Yeah,
place
it's the
to
worst
go.
place to go.
It's like, hey, look at what all these people are doing and you're not doing. Like,
right.
I think it's good to be conscious of that. But
Or find like, I agree. I think that's the last place you go when you're already feeling down. But also, like, there's so many cool accounts now that are just a lot more real.
yeah,
Like there's moms, you know how it's always like Instagram versus reality. But
yeah,
now they just post like the ugly stuff. And it's just like this, to me, it's refreshing.
yeah,
Or there's people that literally call it out. Like one of our friends like literally made a post about this the other day. Like, never look at my Instagram and assume this is my life. I choose to post the happiest moments of my day.
yeah.
So never, and everybody knows that subconsciously.
But it's hard to remember it.
But you don't
in the
think
moment.
about it when you're seeing this like beautiful family. Hey, yeah. You know, or in this like super clean house, when just out of the frame, it looks like an explosion took off, you know? And so took off, you know? And so I don't know, but I feel like you have more. The other day you told me a lot more about stay-at-home mom, self-esteem things that maybe we could talk about a little more too, because I think a lot of it has to do with programming too, like reprogram your idea of being a mom, like fully grasping how important that job is, you know?
I mean, we talk about your mental health. A lot of it stems from things that happen in your childhood.
Right.
So when you look at it from that perspective, it's like, oh my gosh, I just want to be there for my kids. Like,
right.
You have these like little people that like depend on you, and when you're not, like, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a working mom, whatever, like, you can still be there for your kids. But I think we had a conversation a couple weeks ago where we were like, why do we even look at our phones? Like, we were like thinking of all the times that like our kids like are like, mom, look at this, like, look at me, watch me. And you're kind of like, yeah. Like,
well, and we feel bad because we saw, I promise we're not judgmental of other couples, because for me, I'm just like, I'm the last person to judge another parent. I think this
comes from a place of like, oh, like that's what we do sometimes.
Yeah, because we were at the pool and we saw this little girl on the diving board, just like.
Well, she was like a teenager.
Was she?
Like 12, 13.
Well, she had a couple kids.
She had like 5 kids. The mom, yeah. And I'm sure she was a great mom. But this is just
what we're saying. It's not
our
judgment.
Little blip of what we saw, and we were like, it was kind of like, whoa, we need to do
that. We need to not do that.
Because she was sitting on a chair, lounging.
The mom was, and the
looking
girl
at her
was
phone, and the little girl's like, "Mom, watch me," and she'd be like, "Okay," but then immediately look back at her phone.
But we saw it twice Like,
And
it
then,
sounds like we're just like watching them, but it's like, anyway, it was
we
just,
were there
we were
for a
right
few-
next, we were
couple
right
hours.
next to him.
Yeah.
So one time the daughter was right in the mom's face, like, Mom, guess what? Guess what? And the mom's like, I am watching. But she was like looking at her phone. And then the girl got on the diving board and was like, Mom, watch. And literally said it. Like, I watched her because it like broke my heart more because I'm like, I know I've done that.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart thinking of me doing that to my own kids. She was like, Mom, watch. And finally literally shrugged her shoulders and did her trick off the diving board.
And her mom
and
wasn't watching.
I didn't see any of it. And I just wanted to like break down.
I know.
'Cause
I know. I mean, because you know that we've done that. But
Yeah.
then she was like sitting at the edge of the pool, just taking selfies. And then at one point,
The mom, yeah.
which is fine. You can take selfies.
Yeah.
But it was just that she was never, that whole time, I didn't see her really connected to her kids.
Right.
Just like, and then this was one that kind
And
of
she could go home and be totally
she
different.
probably
We don't know
is.
anything
Let's
about
assume
them.
that.
Yeah.
But,
It was more self-reflection
yes.
on our part.
But then, like, because I know I've done it. So, but then she was in the pool with her younger, like, son, and he was, like, swimming by her. She wasn't even looking at him. It was so weird to me. I was like, wait, is she... It just made me think, like, as parents sometimes, like, we're kind of just like robots.
Yeah,
Like,
just keep them busy.
yeah,
so I can
like,
do
oh,
my
they're
stuff.
happy, but I'm like in my own little world, like, which is totally fine sometimes, but like, I don't know.
Well, I saw this quote of like Bruce Lee. I saw this yesterday, and he was just like, he's obviously like a philosopher and a teacher, so he was just like, you won't remember my words, and sometimes you won't even remember my actions. You'll just remember the way you felt when you were with me. And so that's all he wanted to focus on, is if someone's with me, I want to leave them with a good experience of being with me, and not leaving and just being like, I feel like crap when I talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm around them, I feel like it's soul sucking, you know? So I've thought of that a lot, man. There's been times I've lost my temper with my kids, and I'm just like, and kids do dumb stuff and they mess up, and you got to be
Kids
a
are
parent.
kids.
You got to be a parent, and you have
Yeah.
to set rules. But there's times I've literally like, dude, what did I tell you that story I told you of like it just broke my heart that I did to our own kid. Like when it was bedtime, I was so focused on bedtime that I was overlooking like the cutest freaking thing he was doing.
He was just
making a funny
Maeve
voice.
laugh, or
Yeah, he was making like our daughter laugh. And I just was like, and everyone was laughing, like the other kids were laughing and stuff. And I was so focused because I was tired, probably stressed. And I was so focused on just going to bed that I was trying to cut that off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so your child is going to bed thinking, what is wrong with me? They take it on themselves.
Yeah.
You're going to start crying again. They take it on themselves. They don't think like, oh, Dad probably had a hard day at work. They think, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
You know? And so I feel like I have to learn that lesson over and over and over again. And so I think I've told that on this podcast before, but like when Jordan was in the tub and it was time for bed, and you're like, go get him to bed. And I was still in my swimsuit, and he was from swimming. And he's like, Dad, get in. And I was like, you know what? I normally would be like, we don't have time, dude. So I just jumped in with him, and we had the best freaking night, like 30 minutes. And then he went right to bed.
Yeah.
Where if I would have been just fighting him to go to bed, it probably would have ended up taking longer than that. And so
It's kind of like, I don't always do this, but I tell you, the universe provides. And it does. Like, it really does. And if you just like kind of give in to like, I don't know, the positive things, like if you like let those come in, then it all works out, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
if you don't,
Because they're right in front of your face
I think when you
sometimes.
like get this negative feeling about oh we got to get to bed, da, 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 like it just stresses you out more than anything.
Right.
Like I don't know, because there's been plenty of times where I've been like just focused on, okay, you guys shush, be quiet, you know, because our kids, I feel bad saying that, but they just like to talk. We'll lay down and they just like da 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 da, and I'm like, you guys be quiet, and they still take a while to go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
But if I just talk to them, then they just calm down, and it's like,
Right.
Anyway, now we're talking about, this is a parenting podcast somehow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. but it's all connected.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of parents.
Because it does feed all into it. I was thinking a lot of my anxiety comes at night. Like my brain like wakes up at nighttime. So that's when I tend to be less patient with kids, and I'm more focused on getting to bed so I can
I think every parent looks forward to that time though, where they
totally.
they can just kind of be like, just the sheer knowledge that they're asleep, you can like relax, you know? So
yeah. One kid isn't burning the house down right now. I don't know where they are in the house. Like, so, but one specific question somebody asked us but going with the stay-at-home mom stuff we were talking about before, I wanted to stress this to people with the mental health issues and how they can help the significant other. So it's not so much weight on them all the time. Mm-hmm. The communication has to be there. But just as you expect the support from your spouse in your mental illness, you have to support them in their own mental health. So for me and you, communication has been number one, but the second thing is supporting each other independently of our marriage. So whether that's me supporting you wanting to work so you can have experiences and relate to people outside of the home, I'm always down for you to do girls' nights, because I know how much they help me to do girls' nights. Mm-hmm. No, I know how much they help me to go whatever, do guys' nights or do anything. And so,
well, it's a give and take. So I think you're always way excited, like yeah, go. Like, I'd love for you to go on a girls' night, and I'm always excited for you to go on a mountain biking trip, or you know, like ride with your friend. Like, I think that it's just like, okay, like it's not like tit for tat. I don't feel like it like that with us, but I feel like it's just like this understanding, like, hey, like this is for you and you get to have your time too. And I know that it's healthy for both of us. For sure. So let's just make sure to try and like be supportive of each other. So sometimes it's just a vicious cycle. Like, I think some spouses are like, oh, like the husband will be like upset that she's going out, and then when he wants to do something, she resents him, and it's just like this vicious cycle.
She's getting crap when she's out.
Yeah.
So it's like,
but then he does it because he's like, well, she gives me crap, and it's just like this vicious cycle, and it's like, where does it stop? You know?
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, you gotta like understand how much it helps, like, just to have that break and all this stuff. And I think a lot of husbands are like, I'm not getting a break because I'm at work. Yeah. But I hate to say this, but I don't really care. Like, if I'm sitting editing all day, that's what I'm doing. I'm still working 8 hours, but I still know your day work-wise was more difficult, dealing with 4 kids and their needs, teaching them school, you know, feeding them, giving them the attention they need, providing like positive activities.
It's not like, but it doesn't have to be like what you do is better than what I do. It's just we're both working hard, and I think that we both need breaks. That's what it's saying. We're saying.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, a mom's job kind of never stops, like, you know, but you help when you get home. And I think, I hope that most husbands see that. Like, it makes me sad because I do hear that some women, they're like, oh, yeah, like, they get home and they're like, I've been working. I need a break, you know? Right. And I think that's the old school mentality. And it's unfortunate that some men resume that mindset, but I mean, hopefully they'll wake up to the fact that like you just need it's a team effort, you know, like raising kids. So
well, you just all around, like, I think the same as with the mental health stuff. It's like, if I'm just taking because you're being supportive to me, that's eventually going to wear you down so much where not you specifically, but you can start to have resentment because you're like, I'm not feeling like I'm getting that back. Yeah. And it can be draining. Where for me, there's literally been days, and it took me a long time to get to this point, but I remember me being able to be open with you. Like, I don't know why I just can't, like, I feel so much anxiety over this thing, or like I'll start feeling anxious and you help me pinpoint like why. Like, I had a lot of issues with my mom for a year or two, and I remember I would start getting migraines and all this stuff, and I'd start getting anxiety, and I was just like, it's a normal week, and you're like, well, your mom's coming to town this weekend, or we're going into town, and you know that subconsciously you're thinking of those interactions and that stuff. So I remember even,
but things are good now.
Oh, things are great now. It's like literally never been better than now.
Yeah.
And all is communication based. But like, what I was gonna say is, I remember times just you literally being like, well, hey, you don't have to come, just take a nap and then come if you feel better or not. And I remember literally like getting a boost and even feeling like I'm good. Like,
just
I'll
the
come.
mere fact that I offered that,
Yeah.
like, you're like, oh, like I feel supported.
And I knew that you wouldn't be mad if I was like, okay, I'll stay
Yeah.
and take a nap. Because I literally have before just been like, I'll just stay at home. And I'm like, I feel better mentally, like staying home and like helping clean or taking a nap or doing something and then meeting up later, or just you guys come home and I feel refreshed, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's just that support system is there. And there's literally been times where you've told me that and I've just been like, you know what? Like, I'll be fine. I'm good, you know? And so
You, more oftentimes than not, you just battle through, and I feel bad about that.
No.
But
I just have a lot more experience with it now. So it's like,
Yeah.
when I felt that in the restaurant at Applebee's in 2010, I've probably felt that over 100 times again, but
Yeah.
I'm immediately able to name it. This is
Recognize
anxiety.
it.
This is what I need right now. I need, like, maybe I need to go for a walk, a bike ride, or I just need to, like,
when in doubt, get out. It's true for many people.
in doubt, get out. Yeah. But like, this is the point I really wanted to drive home, because it's going to come from both sides of the story, is when to know when to give advice and when to just listen. And this, I don't know if it's for me growing up with just sisters, but I've always been one for the details. Like, tell me more, tell me this story. Like, what else happened? What, you know? And I've always been big on that. And so I think it took us a while to understand, with my own depression, anxiety, what would be helpful. If it would be advice, or if it would just be like, just tell me how bad it sucks. Like, well, tell me what you're going through. And we kind of both talked about this, and it was like, when things are really, really bad for me, like it's despair mode, I thrive on advice and rational thought.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it washes away. Where if I'm just like having one of those moments, like I feel a little anxious, you're just like, dang, that sucks. I'm so sorry. What can I do? And I'm like, it'll be okay, you know? And then it kind of like, so I think understanding that with your partner, whether it's a love language, I don't understand their love language, or just knowing the right time for advice, but it all comes from open communication. Like, tell me what you need, and I want to know, you know.
It's kind of like experience too. Like, I feel like there's never been a time where you're like, okay, when I'm acting this way, you do this, you know? It's,
you see my eyes get glazed
when
over.
I have this look on my face, you know.
When my left eye starts twitching.
You better know that you don't say anything. Like, don't look at me.
When I get this look, just run like hell. No.
Yeah.
Do not approach.
It's, I don't know. I'm no expert, but I do feel like with your spouse, you know them, you can pick up on their cues. Like, my personality tends to be like a problem solver. So when you do feel like despair, I'm like, okay, like, well, there's this and this and this that we can do for that. And we talk it out, and, you know, or, well, that's probably why you're feeling that way. Like,
yeah. But literally just having, knowing that your spouse, your significant other is open to even talking about it, I can't express how much that lowers my anxiety. Just knowing that I have you as a confidant when I feel really stressed, especially when you recognize it, like, and you're not always on your toes. Like, is he anxious? But you have enough experience where I will try and just deal with it myself as long as I can. And then you'll be like, are you all right? And I'm like, honestly, I kind of just had a migraine all day today. And you're able to help me like pinpoint things.
Yeah.
And like,
I feel like it took me humbling myself a little bit, because I remember when you would be like that, my first time I'd ask you, I'd be like, what's wrong? Like, do you remember that?
What's wrong with you?
I did. I'd be like, why are you acting this? I don't know. I just feel like it wasn't like, I didn't have like even just like empathy in my voice at all, you know? And maybe you didn't notice it, but I think you did.
Yeah.
So I think that makes such a big difference, because like just being a little more patient, like you're not going to react to it like as much, like, oh, I can't, have a moment or whatever. Like,
well, that versus like, hey, I feel like something's going on. Like, are you okay? Do you like, is there something I can do? Like, I can't describe how there's literally been times I felt anxiety just wash away.
Yeah.
When you've approached me that way. And I'm just like, dude, I'm freaking so lucky. Like, I'm like, and so, but I think for the spouse who doesn't have the mental illness, just keep in mind, like, your spouse with the mental illness is often beating themselves up that they're not living up to what
on
they think they should be living up to. So they're beating themselves up way more, and they're on kind of, I don't know, dangerous ground sometimes, like, of how they approach it. So I think it's good to understand, like, and I don't remember if you said this or what, but it's like, once you understand that someone doesn't choose to feel this way, that understanding kind of washes away, like, well, why are they feeling this way? Like, what did I do? When you see the situations they have it in, and you're like, oh, like, I'll have anxiety with my family and I love being around my family, but I'll just be like, I feel like I just need to go home. Like, we need to go home, and it's weird, and it's nothing to do with them. And it's just like,
everyone likes to be at home.
No, some people, but yeah. So I think in those situations, for sure, I became like kind of a homebody for a while. I remember and that was one thing I wanted to discuss too. I think was probably the hardest for you was I didn't even like to do the things that were my favorite things to do anymore. Like, concerts were right up there with skiing for me. They were like my favorite pastime growing up. Was going to a concert. I loved it so much, every aspect of it. And I remember after having those anxiety attacks, we lived in northern Utah at the time, and they had the Twilight Series concerts. They were free concerts, and the raddest bands would come, and that was like our tradition.
They were so fun.
It was like our tradition. I remember you being like, Modest Mouse is going to be here next week. Do you want to go? And I remember mentally just like, I can't. Like, I had like agoraphobia. Like, I couldn't be in large crowds. I didn't want to be around places where there wasn't like an exit, and a lot of it stemmed from that Applebee's situation where I was like, I don't have a car. I don't have a way to get out of here.
Well, it's kind of like how even still you keep what medication? Xanax? No.
I keep a whole host of
You don't even use it though. You keep it.
Yeah.
Just a bottle, and anytime you leave, like to go out of town, you like have to have it with you.
Out of town, yeah. Like, I no longer have to do it day to day.
Yeah, like, but you probably did at one point.
Oh, for sure. It didn't leave my pocket. I was a walking like rattle.
But even then, you didn't tell me.
No.
I don't remember knowing that. Like,
I remember some people being like, what's that rattle? I'm like, I just...
We went to the Head and the Heart, and they wouldn't let you in because you had it. Remember?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was migraine stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was like...
They're like, I
felt like a migraine coming on. And I just had it in a little label-less bottle. He's like, what the hell are you trying to sneak in here?
Yeah.
But yeah, still like, it's still like a mental thing of traveling out of town. Like, it's there and I don't use it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's just like
it's like my binky.
Blankie.
Okay.
Did you ever take a binky?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I have no clue.
You probably didn't. But
I did have a blankie.
Well, then it's your blankie.
Okay.
We are kids. That's why back to being parents, like what you do is important for your kids.
Right.
But this just reminded me of how I kind of like slowly, it took me a long time to understand and be empathetic towards what you were going through, because I didn't know anyone ever that had mental health issues. So it was still like, oh, he has that, but like I think it's kind of fake. No, I'm kidding.
No, but I didn't, and me too. I didn't realize my whole family had it.
Oh, that's true.
Because I hadn't had open conversations with them. So I denied having it myself for a long time. And then my mom's like, bro.
Yeah.
I've been on medication. My dad's like, oh, me too. My sister's like, us too. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
and even when I heard that, I was kind of like, well, that's just your family. Like,
yeah. And they
tend to take like, they go to like the route of like, let's get a prescription for this or that, which is totally fine. It's just,
right.
differences. Like my family never even takes ibuprofen. Like,
right.
you know, my parents
When I remember you
are
getting
healthy
headaches,
as horses. No, I'm just kidding.
I remember you like, even when you would have headaches, I was like, why are you dealing with a headache? Just take ibuprofen, take this. You're like, I'm good. And then like in an hour, you'd be like, it's gone. Because you would just be like chugging water or something.
Yeah.
And that was just my first line of defense was
medication. It's just kind of how you were
tends to be
taught, I think. And now we've both kind of come to a happy medium. But I, you know, over time I had become more aware of like the real issues of it and how it does just, it's not something you have control over, you know? So I really began to understand that when I was pregnant with our third baby. I remember we decided not to tell anyone. We wanted to keep it a secret and like do like a big surprise, like video. We made a video to surprise like our families, and like I'm super close with my sisters. So not that I don't think that really had anything to do with it, because I think it was just, I never saw anyone for this, but like I think it's a real thing. I've talked to other moms that pregnancy depression, like there's postpartum depression, but like I got pregnancy depression, and I think it's probably because I was sick for like half of my pregnancy, and just then kind of isolating myself by not telling my family that I was pregnant, like having, you know, like someone to support me, or just, you know, I don't know.
Showing the video?
Yeah, no, just I didn't have anyone to talk to about it.
Right.
And I just I remember feeling like such, like I wanted to get out of the house. I wanted to do stuff with the kids, because I'm the type of mom, I like to do a lot, get out, like hike, explore, you know. And when I was pregnant, I literally couldn't. Like I knew I wanted to, but then I didn't want to. Like, and I was like, this is what it feels like to be depressed.
Totally.
Like I remember laying on the couch. I couldn't like get myself to get up to like do something, you know. Like I had the TV on all day for the kids, and I felt like the worst mom, you know. Right. I remember they wanted to go to the park, and I'd get there and like immediately want to leave. And I remember being like, okay, it's been 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like
we gotta go.
Yeah. And I just wanted to be home all the time. So it wasn't until I experienced that I was like, yeah, depression is real. Like it's not something you have control over. And now after I had our fourth baby, like during that pregnancy, it kind of got worse. And I was like, I just know now that like when I'm pregnant, I'm not the same person that I am. Right. And that's probably how it is for you. Right. When you feel depressed, you're not the same person that you typically are. And that's what's hard to...
Well, that's what's so frustrating too, because who knows? I mean, I don't have a good memory of childhood stuff, but like, I feel like I was more up for like last minute things growing up. Yeah. Like friends would be like, you know, even in my early 20s, before I fully was just like anxiety attacks and stuff. I definitely, looking back, I totally had anxiety and stuff, and I would get depressed and like very low like self-confidence in certain situations, you know. But I still was kind of able to go with the flow and just like, and I remember that being one of the hardest aspects for me, is feeling like I used to be that way, and then just wanting to like climb in a hole and not leave the house. Like I wanted to just be with my family at home, you know, but when you'd be like, oh, we should take a trip somewhere, I would immediately start thinking of every single aspect that goes into going on a trip. And I would be like, and that was hard for you, because we were like, because we used to love to do that stuff. I mean, we do now, but it's like...
You still struggle with it.
No, I know, but is that...
Do you want to tell the story about last week?
Nah.
Okay.
No, we can. That's all where the OCD stuff comes into play, wanting to know like every aspect of it, of the plan and what's going to happen. And I've learned that comes from wanting to control and avoid anxiety triggers. Yeah. You know, so you want to control a situation, and it is controlling and all that, but you're trying to avoid that. Yeah. You know, so.
Which I get. I get.
For sure. You can tell the story if you want.
Oh, no. It's just funny because we're talking about this. We just barely, my sister was in town from California, and we had talked about going to Lake Powell on a little trip. And it's one of my favorite places. So, of course, I'm like super into the idea. And Cav, I think, just has a lot on his plate right now. So he wasn't really feeling it, but also like just was open to it, but kind of like, okay, well, what about this and this and this? And it was just frustrating for me because I'm like, okay, it's simple. We can just go get a cheap motel. Like, we don't have to stress about like, packing a ton of stuff and worrying about food. We can just eat out, get sandwiches, whatever, like that's kind of how it was for us growing up, when we do little quick trips like that. But to you were like, oh, there's so much to do. And
well, yeah. And I think like there's that aspect. And then like, I still do have that hidden fear of an anxiety attack while away from home.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because I've totally had that. I've had anxiety like on work trips, like thousands of miles away, and I've been fine. I've dealt with it. I've like recognized it, and I have way more tools now. But I do still have those moments where I'm like, oh, like what if I'm in Lake Powell, like, and I start having anxiety or I start, and but yeah, so it's hard. I think we still have, I don't know. We still have those moments that are tough for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I pawn it off on different excuses instead of just being like, I feel dumb saying I have anxiety over it. So I'll just be like, well, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this. And I go through this like shame process afterwards when I realize you're right. And then I'm like, then the like self beating up comes after that.
Yeah.
Like, why the hell? Like I just took this away from my family. And I like, all my wife wanted to do was do like a trip, and I made this thing,
Oh.
It's obviously not like that every time, but I still like.
No, it's not. I think there was more. There was more to this situation too.
For sure. But like, yeah. So I think it just, with more time comes more experience and more open communication. Mm-hmm. And that's where I felt the luckiest, is to be able to develop that over time with you.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like that's the best marriage advice. Whenever someone, like if you're at a wedding, or if I've ever been like at a shower and people ask to give the new bride advice or new mom advice.
Never go to sleep angry at each other. Like, you'll lose a lot of sleep that way.
You can go to sleep, yeah. No, but like communication, like I don't think it's wrong to want to just have a calm conversation about things and like get down to the nitty gritty, which I mean, you can't always do as a spouse. That's why I think it's really good to go to therapy as well. Like I know when you've gone to therapy, it's crazy how it helps you so much.
Yeah.
And it's helped me too. I haven't felt the need myself to go there yet, but like just some of the things that you've learned and like sorted through has been super like helpful to my thought process.
Someone messaged me about that is 2 people actually messaged me and said how much starting going to therapy for their mental illness, and then they actually would attend with them a couple times.
Was it their spouse?
Yeah, and it's funny, like I feel like you've always been so positive about the therapy, probably because I've come back and been like, hey, I talked to him totally thinking he was going to be on my side about this thing, and he's like, dude, you're viewing this incorrectly. You're putting people, like, I feel like that won't make sense unless I tell why, but like I would come home and almost like tell you, and you're like, nice, like this, it's not just I think people misunderstand therapy as they're constantly just like pandering to you and like, you are the victim here. Yeah. So, but it's like they're giving you tools, and then they're able to objectively see scenarios where they're like, you're kind of in the wrong in that scenario, you know? But, and I think it would be rad to go together, but,
For sure.
We've kind of, with COVID, kind of just I haven't gone, you know, but I'm sure I will
We
in
have
the
our
future.
late night therapy sessions.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
I'm like, you don't even need a therapist if you're just
Yeah.
like
Yeah. But I have
able
but,
to
but,
really connect and
yeah.
talk. Like,
But if someone is listening and they're going to therapy or
sorry, I'm not saying you don't need a therapist.
No, I
I'm just
know.
saying, like, between us right now, that's how I'm feeling.
that's been
So,
like our
not saying I'm against therapy.
obviously we're talking about all the pros of therapy for sure, but I have had a couple people say that going to therapy with their spouse really opened their eyes, and then the therapist was objectively able to talk to both of them. This is how it would help your wife or whoever who doesn't
Yeah.
have mental illness. This is what you could do to help them, so it's not such a load. And then someone told me, they're like, we have things where we talk about it when it gets too heavy. We just kind of have a thing like, this is great, this would be a great thing for you to bring up with a therapist.
Yeah.
And it's just this understanding as like a mediator.
Almost like I
or
can't take this on.
Yeah.
So let's pass it on to someone else.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
it's not using that card every time, obviously,
No.
but it's like a great way where it's like, hey, let's just pass that on to the therapist for now.
Mm-hmm.
But go to therapy, guys.
Go to therapy, whether it's with an actual therapist or just with your spouse.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's important.
Yeah. So I like just those nights where we just chill and talk and aren't watching a show, but even watching a show together, those are all, it's great.
On occasion.
It's time together.
But I'm just saying, because we used to, that was what we did every single night.
Yeah.
And like now I'm like, that's such a waste of time. Like I love doing it. Like,
Yeah. We love shows.
yeah, but I feel like sometimes it's better to just like take all the distractions away, you know,
Right.
just in life. And I guess that's kind of one of my things lately, where I'm just like, I don't want to be watching shows all the time, scrolling social media, even like endlessly shopping, you know. I do that.
We all want to endlessly shop.
I fill up like carts left and right. I never really check out,
and
but
you don't check out. I'll go to Amazon like, whoa, what is
I know.
this? You're like, I'm saving them in case we need them.
yeah, I'm too lazy to just like put it on my wish list. I don't know. Whatever.
You forget about the wish list sometimes, you know?
A freaking wish list. Stupid.
Just gets lost in the shuffle.
But yeah, anyway, it is good to just have those like moments where you can just connect. I feel like in life, like, connection is such a huge part of like having healthy relationships. So
It's like Jerry, how she's like, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection.
yeah,
So that's what
that
you're-
that helps you with your addictions, right? To be
Yeah.
connected. That helps you with your depression, or I think.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
Yeah.
and some people don't have that, like in like a friend or spouse. So
Yeah.
that's where it's key to have a therapist, you know?
Should we end by, this is kind of off the cuff, but maybe each of us from our perspective, like mine with mental illness, say one last thing to anyone listening, and maybe
Yeah.
you as someone who does, I can go first.
Yeah,
Maybe
you go.
if you need to think of anything. So me as someone who has like depression, anxiety, OCD, all that fun stuff, like I will just say, in a marriage or a relationship, whether you're dating or you're single and looking to date, I think it's different with dating because you are a little guarded and you don't the difference with like a marriage or someone you live with is the trust is there, or you've maybe developed that over time. And so in a marriage, developing that community first, like accepting it yourself, what you have, and don't say, well, I'm going to have this the rest of my life, so this is a crutch for me. Instead, how can I think there's a lot of strengths in it too that you can grasp. Like there's things I'm empathetic towards that I don't think I ever would have been empathetic towards without it. That has kind of opened my eyes of suffering people have gone through, where I'm just usually just like, just the whole buck up thing, you know, where I'm just like, well, let me understand this a little more or whatever. So find how your mental illness can become a strength in certain ways for you instead of always a weakness. And then just cracking your knuckles. But then aside from that, it has to be a give and take. It can't always be like, okay, my spouse finally accepts it, understands it, so now she's always my coach and supporter at all times. It's because it can wear on them just as much. So you've got to find a way to support them in their own mental health and support them in their jobs, in all aspects. It's just got to be this give and take and the open communication. And and that's where therapy really comes in. If you need more support and more help, that's where a therapist can mediate that for you. So, for me, the only other thing I would say is mental illness. It's worth the work. Find what works for you. Find a way to communicate with your spouse in any way, and just put the work in, because you're worth it. You can be a strength to your spouse, to your family, even if you don't feel like it. And the more you can just not have it. I mean, it's hard to say working on yourself and self-care without it sounding like selfish, always doing it on yourself, but you've got to take care of yourself so you can be there for the people that matter. But if you already have kids and you're already married, then those people are depending on you. So you do got to do the work on yourself to be able to be present. So, I don't know, take it one day at a time, and don't be ashamed of what you're dealing with, because everyone's struggling and suffering in different ways. So I think the quicker you can accept it and get the help you need, and communicate openly in your relationship with your significant other. That's the way to go about it. So I don't know.
That. Yeah. I think that as someone that has a loved one, spouse with mental illness, a huge thing for me was to realize that you're not like me. Like, some of the instances when I have a hard time, it's like, you can't expect them to react the same way that you do in certain situations.
Right.
So that's been a huge thing for me. Like, oh, like, this is hard for him. It's not hard for me, but like, that's okay. Like, it's okay that he deals with things differently than me. I think that was a huge thing for me to learn to help you, was just not be like, expect like, oh, just be optimistic like me all the time. Like, that's probably annoying to you, because I am overly optimistic. But then I look at you, I'm like,
but I have to be conscious of that too, because I've totally blown it when you've been freaking pumped about something, and my OCD kicks in. Like, we'll even get a job or something will happen with work, and you're like, dude, are you pumped? And I'm already a year down the road stressing about something with the OCD, every little detail, like, well, it might not work. And you've totally had those times where you're like, can you just enjoy like this moment with me, And that's when the self-defeating thing, like, freak, like, so it's just a process, but you just have to be patient with each other.
Well, to me, I think with our different personalities, like, you take it when I'm like stoked about something that I'm like, it's set for life, like whatever, like. Well,
that was extremely hard in the beginning of all this.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know Allie, she is the quintessential entrepreneur. Like, probably there's been a time in our marriage where you had a business idea almost every day. And I took that so literal, like, oh, freak. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do it? And you're like, I'm just spitballing.
I'm brainstorming.
Dude. I'm brainstorming. That's what this is.
Yeah.
So I cut you off. Go ahead. But just, yeah.
Yeah. So
learning that people process things different.
I just talk about things a lot. Sometimes I don't have a lot of follow through, but I talk, and Kevin gets like overwhelmed. But there are moments where I'm just like, let's just celebrate it. It doesn't mean that any outcome is like secure or set, but like, let's just be excited for the possibilities,
Yeah.
But I do think that, like, when you have a loved one, like, it's just know that you're not alone. If you want to reach out to me, you can. Like, I don't know, through the podcast, you're welcome to reach out to me to talk. It's okay to have bad thoughts. Like, I admitted in this episode that I did have thoughts in the past. Like, I don't think I can do this the rest of my life. Like, I don't know, like, would it be best to, like, I mean,
Just say it.
And
Just
things,
do it. Yeah.
like divorce, that has crossed my mind, and I don't think that's necessarily that wasn't the solution, but it's okay to have those thoughts. Don't beat yourself up for having those. Maybe you don't.
And at the same time, I've been like, maybe that would be best so she can be happy.
Yeah.
You know, like it kind of goes both ways. Like,
Totally.
So.
But I mean, that's the thing is like, even though Kevin struggles with mental health, and I feel like he's been like the most supportive and loving husband, like with all that he's been dealt, like it's crazy what an amazing husband he still is through it all. So I'm lucky. I know it's not every situation is different. I love you. Okay.
I love you. That was nice of you.
But I really do. But I think that use the tools that are out there to help you, because this affects you more than anyone else. Your husband's, your spouse's mental health, and it can be wearing, but I think that you work together. And I wanted to mention, even like going to a yoga class together, like
right.
That helps his mental health. It helps your mental health as well. And it helps you guys be connected. So,
yeah. Well, it's almost like, I think it can sound for some people listening like, oh, so I just have to commit myself to helping them for the rest of my life. All the focus is on them. And it's like, no, the focus is on you together.
Yeah.
Making it through struggles. You didn't think this would be a struggle in your marriage, but it is now. But everybody in their marriage is going to go through something. They're like, I didn't think this would happen. I didn't think we'd get dealt this.
Yeah.
Literally everyone.
I mean, I can think of anyone I know. There's stuff that
pops up. And
they wouldn't have perceived to be an issue, you know?
Yeah, there's so many things. Yeah, endless. So everyone experiences that. And so the yoga example, that's what I neglected to say, was not just supporting each other independently, but the things together, like the yoga class or whatever, like a couple's walk. If you don't want to spend the money, or like people are going through hard times right now, like simply like if there's someone that could watch your kids for an hour and you walk around the block and talk, or you go to dinner together, or do a picnic, like there's so many things. And it's that connection together where you're like, dude, we're in this together. We're not, because marriage, sometimes when it's tough, you can feel like your spouse is the one you're at odds with.
Yeah.
But it's like, we actually agreed to be on the same team. And when you, and it's almost like that time together, it's that reset button where we've totally gone on dates before, and you feel that energized, and then you come home and you're like, let's do this. Like, and I remember one time, like our kids were like insanely sick, like puking left and right. This was like a few years ago. And I seriously remember it was like instinct. We jumped out of bed. I can't remember who did what.
Someone was
cleaning the puke upstairs. Someone was throwing the laundry away, and we just walked past each other, and just like, it was so spontaneous, but we just like high-fived in the hallway. Just like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, 'cause I think that's true. It's like, that is the same as mental health. Like,
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. It's your mental health, but like that you have depression and stuff, but like, it's kind of like, you just need to look at it like, hey, we're in this boat together and we're battling the storm. Like we each do our own things sometimes, but we come together, and it's just like, we can weather this storm, you know?
For sure.
So, and I think it is possible. I mean, I'm so glad that you're talking about this. I think of like all the people that have lost loved ones, like their dads or husbands, that silently like dealt with mental health for a long time and ended up taking their own life. So I'm really glad that you're talking about this, and I'm glad that you've gotten to this point where you're not ashamed. You know, I'm sure it's still hard at points, but like, I just really look up to you for.
That's sweet of you.
Because it's not like the manly thing to do.
It's manly.
No, I'm just saying, like, like by like people's standards, it's like we don't talk about our feelings. Like, like men don't cry; they don't ever feel anything.
But it's even on a woman's side. If there's if you're like, I'm struggling with depression or anxiety, it's almost like that's what moms do. moms deal with that. Like,
Yeah.
deal with it. So it goes both ways.
True.
I think the worst thing you can do is clam up and not talk about it.
Yeah.
So talk to someone you trust. You know, that's what therapy's there for. And the more you open up about it, it gets,
Gets better.
So
Communication. Amen.
What was your other saying? Get out.
When in doubt, get out.
Okay. Awesome.
When in doubt, get out and communicate.
And
There you
love
go.
is the message. That's Allie's motto. Love is the message.
That is my new motto. We can talk about that more later.
Yeah,
but
we'll talk about that another time. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Alex Marie.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on here.